Ever scroll through social media and everyone seems like they're living these perfect lives and you're just stuck there like, why do I feel so lonely?
Right.
It's like we're more connected than ever, but also lonelier than ever. How does
No.
that even make sense? Well, that's what we're diving into today.
Yeah, that's the paradox we're unpacking.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you really think about it. And this article we've been poring over, how come we are so lonely in a world that is so connected?
Hmm.
Really lays it all out there.
Yeah, it really digs deep into this whole thing. It's not just some, passing trend or anything.
Right.
This is like a fundamental shift
Yeah.
in how we connect as human beings, or like you said, maybe how we're not connecting as human beings.
Yeah, it's like we've traded those like real genuine connections for just like a sheer number of friends online.
Right.
But how many of those people would actually be there for you if you needed them? You know, like really there.
Exactly. It's like we've got thousands of Facebook friends,
Mhm.
but how many would actually help you move a couch?
Or hide a body.
Okay, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe
I-
not that far.
Just kidding. Unless.
All right, we're not going to go there, but it makes you think, right?
It really does.
Like sociologists talk about this thing called
Oh, yeah, I read about that.
weak ties versus strong ties.
Yeah.
And we might have hundreds of these weak ties online.
Yeah.
People we've maybe interacted with once or twice. But those deep supportive relationships, the ones that actually protect you from feeling lonely, those take time. Real conversations, shared experiences, not just liking each other's posts. You know what I mean?
Totally. And let's be real for a sec. Scrolling through everyone's highlight reel online, constantly comparing ourselves like the best versions of everyone else, that's not exactly a recipe for feeling connected in content, is it?
No, it's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
This article highlights a study from the University of Pittsburgh, and they found a direct link between increased social media use and feelings of isolation.
Yeah, it makes sense. The more we're bombarded with these perfect lives, the more we start to feel like our own lives don't measure up.
Yes. Exactly. It's like this constant reminder of everything. We're not doing everything we don't have.
It's that whole grass is always greener thing,
Mm.
but amplified by 1,000 perfectly filtered photos.
I don't know, 1,000 times worse.
And here's the thing. Our brains are wired to crave those little hits of dopamine we get with every comment, every notification.
Oh, yeah.
So we're constantly chasing that next hit, even though deep down we know it's not real connection.
It's like we're caught in this loop, this constant need for validation from people we barely even know.
It's so true. And the article does a great job of explaining how these little digital crumbs of attention, while they might feel good in the moment,
Right.
they actually distract us from the kind of deep present conversations that actually build real bonds.
Yeah. You can't have a meaningful conversation when you're constantly checking your phone.
Exactly. It's like we've forgotten how to just be present with another human being without needing to document it or share it with the world.
It's sad, but it's true.
This reminds me of this one time I was out with a friend for dinner, and I was so busy responding to this hilarious meme thread online
Right.
that I totally missed like half the conversation. I mean, I was there physically, but mentally I was totally checked out.
Oh, I've been there.
It's so easy to do these days.
And that right there is the paradox in action. We're physically present, but mentally miles away.
It's like we've mastered the art of coexisting without actually connecting.
Exactly.
It's kind of depressing when you really think about it.
It is, but the good news is it's something we can work on.
That's true.
We can learn to be more present, more engaged in our interactions.
Totally, but it takes effort. It's like we have to retrain our brains to prioritize real-life connection over digital distraction.
Exactly. It's like anything else. The more we practice, the better we get.
And the article actually mentions an MIT sociologist who argues that all this digital communication is making us worse at face-to-face interaction.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is kind of ironic, isn't it? We have all these amazing tools to communicate, but we're losing the ability to connect on a deeper level.
It's like we're forgetting how to read social cues, how to have a conversation that doesn't involve emojis or GIFs.
Exactly, and then we wonder why we feel so lonely and disconnected.
It's a vicious cycle.
So how do we break free? The article mentions digital detoxes, like taking a break from technology altogether.
Yeah, I've heard of those.
But let's be real, how many of us can actually unplug for an extended period? The fear of missing out, the constant need to be in the know, it's like this invisible tether that keeps us glued to our devices.
It's true. FOMO is a powerful force.
It really is. So what's the solution? Do we all need to become hermits and live off the grid?
I don't think that's necessary. There's got to be a way to find a balance.
Right. Like, how can we use technology to enhance our lives without letting it completely take over?
That's the million-dollar question. And luckily, this article dives into some potential answers.
Okay, so digital detoxes might be a bit extreme for most of us, but The article got me thinking. So digital detoxes might be a bit extreme for most of us, but the article got me thinking. What if instead of going cold turkey, we found ways to inject a little more real-world connection into our digital lives? Like, how can we use these tools to bridge the gap instead of widening it?
That's a really interesting way to look at it. Instead of just demonizing technology, how can we use it to connect better?
Exactly.
And the article does have some good ideas there. But one thing it talks about is being more intentional with our tech use.
Okay.
So instead of just mindlessly scrolling for hours on end,
Oh, yeah.
set some limits for yourself.
Right.
Like maybe an hour a day on social media or whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Turn off those notifications,
Yeah.
the ones that are always sucking you back in.
Well, tell me about it. My phone's basically trained me to crave those little red bubbles.
Right. It's all about taking back control of your attention.
Yeah.
Deciding how and when you want to engage instead of letting those algorithms decide for you.
Right. It's like we're all just rats in a giant experiment sometimes.
Pretty much.
But you're right. It's about taking back our attention and using it for what actually matters, Connecting with people face to face, having real conversations.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing those real-life interactions over the digital connect.
It's funny you should say that. I actually tried something like that recently. I was out for coffee with a friend, and I made a conscious effort to keep my phone in my bag.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
It was hard at first. Like, I kept feeling this urge to check it every 5 seconds.
I bet.
But then something really cool happened.
What's that?
I actually started paying attention to the conversation.
No way.
I know, right?
What a concept. Talking to the person right in front of you.
I know it's revolutionary. But
Yeah.
seriously, it was like, without that distraction from my phone, I could actually be present in that moment, Really listen to what my friend was saying, pick up on their body language, all those subtle things that you just miss when you're glued to a screen.
That's the power of presence, my friend. And it's something we've lost sight of in this digital age.
Totally. But like you were saying before, it's a muscle we can strengthen.
Exactly.
The more we practice being present, the easier it gets.
Absolutely. And the more rewarding those interactions become.
Totally. So maybe we don't have to give up technology altogether, but maybe it's about finding a balance,
Exactly.
Like using it in a way that enhances our lives without taking over completely.
100%. And the article even gets into some ways we can do that together as a society.
Oh, really? Like,
Well,
what?
for example, it talks about how we need to rethink how we design technology, especially social media platforms. Like, what if instead of designing them to be as addictive as possible,
Yeah.
we design them to actually promote connection and well-being?
Okay, now that's a world I want to live in. Sign me up.
Right.
But how do we even start to change things? It seems like such a huge task.
It is a huge task, but it's not impossible. The article reminds us that we as consumers have a lot of power.
Yeah.
We can demand better from these companies.
Right.
We can choose to support companies that are prioritizing ethical design and user well-being
Yeah.
over just profits.
Yeah. So it's like voting with our wallets.
Exactly.
It's like we've been given this amazing tool, but we're still kind of figuring out how to use it responsibly.
Right. It's like we're all in this giant beta test.
Totally. But the good news is this article doesn't just leave us hanging with a bunch of problems.
Yeah. What else does it say?
Well, it actually highlights some pretty cool things that are already happening, like all these community-based programs that are popping up to help combat loneliness and bring people together.
Oh, really? Like what?
Like, I'm talking workshops on how to build meaningful relationships, group activities that center around shared interests, even something as simple as creating more public spaces where people can just hang out and interact,
That's awesome. I love that people are taking things into their own hands.
Me too.
Mm.
It's really inspiring and makes you realize that we don't have to wait for some big tech company or the government to fix this for us, We can start making a difference right here in our own communities.
Exactly. And the article also talks about how important it is to acknowledge loneliness as a shared experience.
Oh, yeah, that's so true.
Like just admitting that we're all in this together can actually be really powerful.
Right. It's like we're all kind of in the same boat,
Yeah.
just trying to figure things out.
And once we realize that, we can start to let go of that shame and isolation and start supporting each other.
It's about creating a sense of belonging.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's when real change can happen. The article even goes so far as to suggest that this shared experience of loneliness could actually be a catalyst for creating a better world.
Wow.
Like if we can harness that longing for connection that so many of us feel,
Right.
we can start to rebuild our communities, our workplaces, even our digital spaces
Yeah.
in a way that prioritizes human well-being.
So instead of just focusing on productivity and efficiency all the time,
Right.
we start prioritizing things like connection and empathy and meaning.
Exactly. It's about creating a world where everyone feels seen and heard and valued.
That's beautiful and honestly kind of radical when you think about it.
It is radical, but I think it's possible.
Me too. It's like we're at a turning point and we have a choice to make, you
Yeah.
know? Do we want to keep going down this path of isolation and disconnection, or do we want to create something different?
And it starts with each of us making small changes in our own lives.
Like putting down our phones every once in a while and
Exactly.
having a real conversation with
We're
someone
joining a community group.
or volunteering our time.
There's so many ways to connect.
And who knows, maybe in the process, we'll rediscover what it really means to be human.
That's a great place to end it.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the paradox of loneliness in a hyper-connected world.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the science behind loneliness to the ways that technology is shaping our relationships to the incredible initiatives that are bringing people together.
We've explored some really practical tips for cultivating more meaningful connections in our own lives.
If you're feeling a little less alone after listening to this episode, then we've done our job.
Absolutely. And remember, you were not alone in this. We're all in this together.
And if you're looking for more resources or want to share your own experiences with loneliness, head over to our website.
We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time, be kind to yourselves and each other.
And don't forget to log off every now and then and go connect with someone real.
You never know what you might discover.